Hey everybody, how we doing today? Robbie Falk here. We're going vertical again. The phone's messed up, I think. Or something. I'll figure it out one day. For now, it's not the view that counts, even though some say I have strikingly handsome, good looks, and it would look much better in HD. All that matters is we're here together and we're having a nice conversation on this Monday night, a very eventful Monday for Mississippi State, and we've had quite a few of those in the last year here on this space. I go back to about a year ago, Mississippi State coming off an Egg Bowl win, and Mike Leach suddenly and tragically passes away. And I remember coming here the day of, I think, and discussing with a lot of you, how tragic that situation was for Mississippi State and not really knowing where to turn. And the Bulldogs and their administration decided to turn to Zach Arnett to lead the program. He was the interim coach at the time for the bowl camp. He was preparing the team for the bowl, and they decided, Dr. Mark Keenum and also interim athletic director Bracky Brett, that Zach Arnett would be the guy that was going to lead them through the next year. And we've talked about it before, but at the time, it really made sense. Mississippi State needed stability more than anything at that time. I was on with Matt Moscona today in Baton Rouge, and he questioned, with hindsight, whether or not I felt like that was a good decision by Mississippi State. And I obviously, you look back at it, and it doesn't look like a great decision. Mississippi State and Zach Arnett have failed this year at probably going to finish with 5 wins, maybe even 4 if things go south this week, which would be a massive disappointment. But, it was a failure by that stretch. But State was going to have to field off just about everybody in the SEC coming after their roster and their recruits. And they felt like the best thing to do at that time was have some kind of stability and a guy that could lead them. And it turns out it didn't work out. It did work out for them with the recruiting class and retaining the roster, but, for the season, it just didn't. And it sucks for Zach Arnett. I really hate it for Zach. This is a tough situation. He's a good guy. He's got a great family. They loved it in Starkville. I thought he was a great fit for Mississippi State from a personality standpoint, but he just didn't win the games, and the team just looked kind of lost. And Zach Arnett, I think he's a great coach. Is he a head coach? That remains to be seen. There's a lot of coaches out there that are very good at what they do, and a lot of them are not built to be offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators. Some of them are built to be better head coaches than they are position coaches or coordinators. And a lot of them are not built to be head coaches. It takes a special person to lead a program. And I don't know if Zach Arnett is that guy. I don't think we have a definitive answer on that. I think he still has time to grow into that. This is just not the time. This is not the time. He's not ready to do it. I think that it's a very big possibility that he could be the USC defensive coordinator next year. And quite frankly, I think that would be an excellent fit for him and for USC. And that's an opportunity for him to get groomed a little bit more to becoming a head coach. But right now, he's just not ready. And Zach Selman makes the call on Monday to fire Zach Arnett, as you guys saw. Not a big surprise. It was embarrassing what happened to Mississippi State on Saturday. I sat in this chair. I went off on the whole situation on Saturday night. If you guys want to relive that, you can go back to my reaction video on that. But it was... I don't think there's any other way that you could handle this if you're Zach Selman. You need to make a change, and I think this was the right time to do it. You got 2 games left. You're probably not going to beat Ole Miss, but any chance of beating Ole Miss is going to come without Zach Arnett when you have a little bit of jolt of electricity back into your program, whenever you have guys that are, they feel rejuvenated. Because right now, the way that the players are playing, the way that the staff was operating, there was no juice in the building. This is an opportunity for those guys to rally around each other. We've seen this before. Last year, We saw it with Auburn. They got a nice boost there late in the season. It didn't really change a lot of things for them, but almost came into Starkville and beat Mississippi State with the team that they had led by Cadillac Williams. And I think Will Friend was running the offense. So you really never know what could happen here. I think it's going to help them going into this weekend as they're led by Greg Knox. I mean, you still have the same coordinators who have been an issue for Mississippi State, but hopefully this provides a little bit of a lift for them in these last 2 weeks against Southern Miss and Ole Miss. And after that Ole Miss game, it's full bore into the head coaching search, which, by the way, has been started for, probably a couple of weeks at this point. I think Zach Selman has been doing his due diligence on this. They want to have a coaching hire made. He did not give a timeline or anything like that, but they want to have a coaching hire made before or around the SEC championship. They want this thing done within a week of the season being finished. Now, they want to be very thorough with that. I want to be clear about that. They're not rushing this hire. But the goal is to not let this linger past the opening of the transfer portal. You want to have somebody in here a few days before the portal to talk to players, to have guys ready, and also have your operations ready for the portal, because this is going to be the biggest transfer portal class in MSU history, I think. I think this has a chance to be the most players they've ever brought in out of the portal. I'm thinking they need 24 people. I mean, this whole roster needs to be turned over in a couple of years, and this year's where it starts. You've got to get a lot of new faces in here. Guys that, not just guys that are fillers, not doing what Colorado's doing and just totally changing out the rosters. You need guys to come in here and compete. And we'll see if that happens in the next year. But I think it's going to be a heavy portal group. I think there's going to be a lot more emphasis on the portal than there is on the high school recruiting. But you obviously want to keep the guys that you have. You want to go back and get Stonka Burnside back on board. But you need these guys to be here, these coaches, you need them to be here shortly after the season ends, so you're ready to start this thing and hit the ground running. Mississippi State has got to turn this thing around quickly. So with that, I'll open it up for some questions, comments, whatever you guys got. Throw them in there in the chat box and we'll get it rolling. Random Yoda, hearing rumors that Lane Kiffin will be in Starkville around Thanksgiving. Can you confirm? I have heard that Lane Kiffin will be in Starkville on Thanksgiving. It bears watching. And also, we saw the day Nick Saban was wearing a Old Waverly polo. I can neither confirm nor deny that Miss Terry was not looking for houses at Old Waverly. So that's just something to watch. Kobe Walker, is Dan Mullen an option? I mean, I know a lot of people, this has been the biggest topic today, is Dan Mullen. And nationally, I think just about everybody has said, go get Dan Mullen. And it's a very polarizing topic with you guys. I completely get it. You either have the group of people that are firmly in the camp that you should go after Dan Mullen, or you have the group of people that are heck no people that don't want to see Dan Mullen's face again. And again, I totally get it. I get both sides of it. Me personally, I think you can do a whole lot worse than Dan Mullen. Can you do better? That you possibly can. But we've seen what Dan Mullen can do at Mississippi State. And what we've seen is quite possibly, if not the best coach in Mississippi State history. Now, he doesn't have an SEC championship like Alan McKean. He doesn't have an SEC West championship like Jackie Sherrill. But he was about to be the winningest coach in the history of Mississippi State. He's put the greatest NFL players Mississippi State has ever produced in the NFL. And he's developed a lot of those guys from 3 stars to Chris Jones ended up being a 5-star. But he evaluated him and found him before anybody else. But Dak Prescott is running things at Cowboys Stadium. I would call him. I'm just going to be on the record. I would call Dan Mullen. I don't know if he's my first choice, but he would be on my list. Dan, are you interested? Would you come back to football? If you do come back, you're not bringing John Hevesy. Yes, I am. Okay, well, that's it. Hang up. You put in some things there. If he's going to bring John Hevesy, it's a no-go. His staff that he will not say a bad word about or put anything on. Like that group cannot be involved in this second time around. That's what I would say. And he also has to be all in on NIL and recruiting. And I'm not sure he would be all in on that. I don't know. I don't even know if he's interested. He's got a pretty good gig right now. He got a nice buyout from Florida. I have no clue if he's even interested in coming back, but I would definitely call him. That's just me. I'm sorry if anybody disagrees with that. I get it. Yeah, Heath, you kind of answered that in the first part of the show about the team getting hyped up. I do think that this could help them. I don't think it could get any worse. Jason Hanna looking for us to hire a standing head coach who's an offensive guy. That would be where I would go. I think that you need a head coach, but I think it needs to be a offensive minded head coach, or you need to be hiring a great offensive coordinator. And that's kind of what we were looking for with Zach Arnett when he was defensive coordinator. You're looking for him to hire a great offensive coordinator. It just didn't happen. So this time around, if you do get a defensive guy, there has to be an assurance that a great offensive mind is coming with him, because you've got to turn this offensive thing around. Mississippi State has got to be more exciting on that side of the ball. Right now, it's bad, and can't get much worse. But you really need to up your game offensively. I would go after an offensive-minded head coach and a guy that's already in place. I don't want to go after an offensive coordinator. I want a guy that has already been established as a head coach and is already coaching a team and kind of knows what to do. I think they really need a guy like that in place to kind of stabilize things, because right now things are just out of whack. And they need somebody that's run a program before, that knows what they're doing and been successful at it and won games. Rodney Rhodes, I made a Twitter account to ask you and Hey Dad a couple of questions on rumblings. And that'll be a couple of weeks, but how am I supposed to ask questions? Yeah, Hey Dad has dropped the rumblings 2 weeks in a row. I'm about to protest the show, I think. I need a day where we're just talking mostly off-topic things. I'm kind of burnt out. I just need a day for the rumblings, and he's canceled them now 2 weeks in a row. I'm getting tired of it. But if you do want to ask a rumblings question, which it'll be next week, I guess, Hey Dad has put in all these rules. You basically have to go to your Twitter account, and when you make a tweet, there's like a little globe at the bottom where it says everyone can reply or something like that. Click on that and put only people you mention. And then when you make a tweet, tag myself and Hey Dad in it, write your tweet out, and then hit send. And there you go. And then you'll have to go back and change your settings again if you want them changed to what they were. Jake Reed, how much money do you think it'll take to get what we need? That's a good question. It really just depends on who they're after. If you're going after a group of 5 coach, which I think is kind of where they are, I think that you can get a guy for $5-6 million probably. Most of those group of 5 coaches, a GJ Kinney, he's making under $1 million. I mean, 4 or 5 million should intrigue him, I would think. If you're going after Jamie Chadwell, I'm thinking 7 or 8. He's making $4 million. You need to get close to doubling his salary, I think. And that's going to be a lot of money because he's got a pretty substantial buyout. That is a guy that I like. I really like Jamie Chadwell. I think that would be a home run hire for Mississippi State, but it's going to cost them to do it. They had Hugh Freeze there last, and they were willing to pay him a lot of money. It took Auburn coming in and hiring him to get him away from there, and they've spent a lot of money on Jamie Chadwell. Now, they got a lot of deep pockets there at Liberty, apparently, and they're willing to pay for a coach. And he can easily say that he's just going to take a jump to the next job, and that job being a big-time job, and just stay there and win. He's won at Coastal Carolina, big. He's winning at Liberty. He's undefeated right now. So, he doesn't have to jump right now. He can wait around for a big job, but if you come in there with $8 million and you're willing to pay that buyout, if State's got that, that's going to be kind of hard to turn down. I mean, you're going to double someone's salary when they're making $4 million. It's going to be tough for a lot of those Group of 5 coaches to turn it down. So that plus the NIL stuff, I mean, I think State can spend some money here. They were just paying Zach Arnett $3.5 million or whatever it was. And I think that you have some money to spend here. So Stringer Films has made it in. Stringer Films predicted Mississippi State to, I think, win the West and beat Alabama, by the way, which I was wrong in my predictions too, Stringer. So Steve Spurrier Jr. should have replaced Leach. I wasn't for that. I like Steve a lot, but I didn't think that was going to move the needle either. But he's got the pedigree. I don't think that was going to help Mississippi State either. Matthew, does head coach pick affect the price pool for assistant coaches? A little bit. It kind of just depends on who they hire, and a lot of that's negotiated when you're talking to coaches. I mean, it's a lot of them would rather have more NIL and more money for their assistants and more money for the guys underneath them, the support staff and stuff like that. And that's something to consider here. I think State needs to push more money into their recruiting budget, into building more of that support staff. They're the guys that are doing all their stuff on campus recruiting and stuff like that. I feel like they need to put a lot of money into that. So how does that factor into it? I don't really know what State's budget is. I think they're willing to spend $7 to $8 million on a head coach, but what's the rest of the budget look like? Are you willing to invest to the point where you can go get a legit offensive coordinator as well and a defensive coordinator? Or are you going to have to hire a really good coach and probably downgrade a little bit at offensive and defensive coordinator? I don't know. Because I think that's the thing with college athletics now. I mean, you're spending a lot of money on a lot of different things. They need money in NIL. They need money to go into the head coach, to the staff, to the support staff. I think there's so much money that you have to push into this to be successful. And you look at the teams that are successful right now, they're investing that kind of money in it. Can Mississippi State get on that level is the question. You got to balance out a lot of stuff. But I think you kind of have to. I think you kind of have to spend here. I mean, you just had a year where you didn't spend a whole lot of money. You should have a little bit left in the tank. Stringer, bet all my savings on State. This is my last $2. I appreciate it anyway, Stringer. And I appreciate the confidence, man. I mean, like I said before, go all in. Josh Manning says he likes Chris Kleiman from Kansas State. I love Kleiman. I just don't know if that's a possibility. He just signed, let me see what his contract, I believe he just signed a contract there. He's going to be expensive. 8-year, $44 million. So he's making $5.5 a year. So it's going to take a lot to pull him. I think it's going to be tough to get a sitting Power 5 head coach. He was making $4 million a year, I believe, and he got bumped up to 1.5 more. It's going to be tough to pull him. He got that in May, so that buyout's going to be huge. Yeah, I just don't see it. I like Lance Leopold too. I've been a Lance Leopold fan for a while. That's another guy that's going to be tough, just because it's so difficult to pull a sitting Power 5 coach. I was going to pull up his too. He's making $5 million. And that contract goes to 2029. That's 6 more years. $3.9 million professional services payment for multimedia activities. Interesting. Oh, he's got a really interesting contract. 600,000 per year royalties for his name, image, and likeness. That's wild. Yeah, that's another one that's going to be. I like both of those coaches, but that just shows you, kind of what you're dealing with Power 5 coaches. Cameron Davis, what's your thoughts on Chadwell or Kenny? Those are my top two realistic hires. Kenny, they're two different guys. Chadwell is, I think, a guy that not a can't miss, because I don't know how many people are can't miss. So Nick Saban is a can't miss guy. There's very few. I think Brian Kelly's pretty much can't miss at this point, at least from a perspective of you're going to win 10 plus regularly. As far as winning national championship, I don't know, but can't miss is really kind of a tough thing to do. But he is a guy that I feel very comfortable would be successful in this level. He's been successful now at a few different stops. I like his program. I like how he runs things. So I think he would be a really good hire. Kenny is more of a wild card. He is a total gamble, I think. And it's his contract is manageable. It's $800,000. So I mean, I think you could get Kenny. But he's a guy that, is fairly new. He just did this thing where he completely turned over the roster with like 53, I think, transfer portal players. It's a little scary, but he's got a little something about him I like. He was at Incarnate World last year. He was 12-2, and they went to the semifinals, the FCS. Then he makes the jump to Texas State. They're 6-4 this year. They're 3-3 in their league, and he's lost to some good teams this year. But it's a gamble, man. I like him. I get a good vibe from him, but you just don't know yet. He's young. He's energetic. I feel like he would attack the transfer portal. I feel like he would really be exciting in what he does offensively. And he's made a quick rise, man. 2017, he started coaching. He was a graduate assistant in 2017 at SMU, and then an analyst at Arkansas in 2018. It wasn't until 2020 where he got to actually, coach positions. He was with the Eagles. 2020, offensive coordinator for Hawaii. 2021, co-offensive coordinator for UCF. And then he was a head coach. I mean, what a jump. It's kind of scary, but at the same time, people are seeing something in this kid. People are seeing, and I call him a kid. He's a year older than me. That's stupid. But, crazy. This guy has made such a huge jump. It's a little scary, but I really do believe that he's going to be good in time. He's my wild card. He's a guy that is a total gamble, but could be a huge reward for you if he comes in here and at least for a couple seasons really good. Now, he jumps around. I mean, he has success here a year or two, and he could be on the way out. But if he has success here in a year or two, go get somebody else like him after that. I don't know. It's a gamble for sure, but I like him. Josh 97, do you think this is going to set the program back? Just depends on who they hire. Need to make a great hire here. This is huge for Zach Selman. This is big for Zach Selman. It's huge for Mississippi State too, but for Zach Selman personally, you're trying to get to your next step. And his next step is, in his eyes, probably a blue blood, like a Greg Byrne type, move, which I think he went to Arizona, so it wasn't really blue blood, but that was a really good athletic program. For Zach Selman to make that move to the next step, become Oklahoma athletic director in the future or whatever, he's going to be judged by who he hires. The whole thing about athletic directors is, are you raising money? and who are you hiring, and are those people winning? And if he's not hiring the right guy, he's not going to go to Oklahoma. He's not going to go to these bigger jobs. If Mississippi State fails, he's not going to have a job here anymore. So this is a huge hire for him. And so far, he's saying all the right things. I thought he was great. Every time we've heard him talk, he's been excellent. What he said today was right on the nail on the head. He talked about, Mississippi State, and it's the best time to be a Bulldog. This place sells itself. You can win here. The kind of what his expectations are for Mississippi State. And it was, the way that he's handled this is totally not Mississippi State. Firing a guy in the middle of the season, talking about, he wants to win now. He's going to do what it takes to win big. This isn't how Mississippi State's operated a lot of times in the past. I like it. It's refreshing. But he's got to get this done here. And can it set the program back? It can. A bad hire can, but a really good hire can change your whole trajectory. And my thought is you really need to nail this, and Mississippi State needs to change the total direction of its football program, its athletic department, its university in the city of Starkville. It's time for people to get out of this, like, we're just a small little town. We're just happy to be in the SEC. We just want to get to a bowl game and beat Ole Miss. I'm so tired of seeing Mississippi State picked last in the SEC West every year. Mississippi State being talked about like they're Vanderbilt. It's time to change that narrative, and you've got to change it now. This is the time to do it. You have all the money coming in from ESPN, the SEC. You have money to make it happen. People are investing in NIL. This is the time to change it. Mississippi State fans have a chance to change it too by giving to the Bulldog Initiative. It's time for Mississippi State to get out of this cellar and get out of this poor old state, is the term that always gets used. You can change your own narrative. These teams that have become great over the years, they weren't just given that. They made themselves that. And there's been programs at Mississippi State that once were bottom dwellers and were no good that became nationally relevant. Mississippi State baseball hasn't always been where it was. It made itself that. Women's basketball went to back-to-back national championships. They used to play in front of 50 people. You are what you make your program, and Mississippi State has a chance to change that here coming up. And this is a big hire to make for Zach Selman. So it could set the program back. It could change things for the good. We'll see. It all depends on the hire. I think coaching, you win with players, but the coaches they make the program. The coaches set the standards. The coaches recruit the players. The coaches are really, really important. At the end of the day, the players are the ones that go out on the field and they win the games, but the coaches put them in the positions to do that. That's what they have to do. Kevin Wilcher, do you think this rallies the fan base to contribute more financially? That's a decision that fans are going to have to make individually. I think the best thing that the fans can do right now is support the Bulldog Initiative, because you have to show this new head coach, and I hate telling people how to use their money, but I'm just telling you what that can do for you. If you show a coach that you are willing to support NIL and that Mississippi State has the NIL to do it, it's going to sell this program in a much, much better way. I appreciate it, Jim. Thanks for that. Will the OC and DC still be involved in the last two games, or did they leave immediately with Arnett? Selman said that they are staying on board. So you will continue to see the coaches. They'll continue to run the offense, and nobody else is leaving. As of now, we haven't heard of anybody else that's leaving. And Zach Selman has made it clear to him to continue to fight for state and to get behind Greg Knox and go win these last two games. They made a message today that they really wanted to win these last two games. I thought that was a good message to send from Zach Selman and Greg Knox, that their first priority is to go win these last two football games. And that shows you they're not giving up on the season. They still want this season to mean something. And you win these next two games, you're going to a bowl game after all this. It's going to be very difficult to go win the Egg Bowl. But first and foremost, you need to go take care of business against Southern Miss and go from there. And you never know. You never know in the Egg Bowl. And who knows, Mississippi State could be playing with some superhuman strength in that Egg Bowl with everything that's going on. Who knows? Matthew Anthony, thoughts on Jeff Traylor? Love him. I think he would be a home run hire. I just don't know. That's a guy that's been talked about with Texas A&M. I think he's set up for a big time job. It would be home run if State can get him, but I just don't know what the odds are on that, especially if A&M's in the mix. I think A&M's probably going to go after Mike Elko. That's just my gut feeling. If they don't go after somebody even bigger like an Urban Meyer or something like that, I feel like Mike Elko is the play there, and I think he would be excellent. I think Mike Elko would be a really good hire. But it might be a situation where Jeff Traylor is like – Jeff Traylor and Jamie Chadwell I put kind of in the same category of they're kind of on the fence of going from, where they are right now to a bigger name. I put it in a very similar category as what Billy Napier did going from ULL to Florida. So I don't know if he's ready to make the move. He's definitely on my list. I'm calling him for sure. Jeffrey, I think Lanning is probably going to be on there too for Texas A&M. But he's in a good spot. A&M can pay him good money. He's competing in a conference that's winnable, which this one's winnable too. But more often than not, this is the most competitive conference in America. But he's in a really good spot there at Oregon. I think he's happy there, but he's definitely going to be up for that job at A&M as well. I think Elko is probably going to be the guy there. It makes the most sense. That's a nice jump from Duke to A&M. He's a former A&M guy. He was great at A&M. I thought he ran a really good defense there. So that's who I think is probably going to be there. But yeah, Jeff Traylor's excellent. Beav on Dan Mullen, I don't disagree, but you don't think Selman will want to go that route if he's looking to make some noise. Yeah, I don't disagree with that either, and I don't know if Mark Keenum is going to sign off on that either. That's kind of the thing. Or Dan Mullen. Who's to say he wants to coach? Adam, thoughts on Jeff Lebby? I just, he's not really tearing it up at Oklahoma. I'm not crazy about an offensive or defensive coordinator on this one, although I would take an offensive coordinator over a defensive coordinator. He's kind of cooled a little bit for me. Jackson, I've lived in Austin for a while and was impressed how Tom Herman handled the Longhorn media. I can't cuss. My mom might be watching this. I'm sorry, Jackson. Yeah, I like Tom Herman. I'm cooling on him a little bit too, just because of what Florida Atlantic's how their season's kind of playing out, and I'm one of those that I don't put a whole lot into this season for them because of what he inherited, but he's still just not really setting the world on fire for me. That was one of the guys that I really thought State should go after. And I still don't know if that'd be a terrible hire. I'm kind of cooling a little bit. I think there's some guys have kind of passed him for me. The Jamie Chadwells and even G.J. Kinney's kind of passed him for me because the thought of the unknown for him is really intriguing for me. Justin Tidwell, I like Mullen, but would he survive without recruiting? Because I don't think building a portal team every year is sustainable. Well, I think he would still recruit. I think it would be I think it would be more what you saw when he was here last. When he was here last, it was kind of, he didn't like getting in those recruiting battles. He liked to evaluate talent, which is fine. I still think that he could coach those players up, but they would have a ceiling on what they can do. You've got to go out there and get players that can compete in this league. And it's with the portal now, what it is, it's going to be tougher and tougher for teams to do what they did at Mississippi State then, and because players just don't want to stick around anymore. So that would be his model would need to change for sure. Let's get rid of this. Sorry, let me take care of this, please. Getting spammed here by Lincoln Moser, who's, I don't know if that's a spam thing or not, but he's going to be sitting out for a little bit. Where were we? Got a lot of questions tonight. What about Rich Rodriguez? Hope not. I know he's doing some good things at Jacksonville State this year, but I think we've seen that experiment. It's crazy to me that Alabama almost hired Rich Rodriguez and instead you got Nick Saban. Wow. Justin, why do we go after G5? If Selman has pull with his name, we should be able to get a proven Power 5 coach. It's just being realistic, Justin. If you go look at the rest of the SEC, you'll see how difficult it is to go out there and get a proven Power 5 name. It's very tough. Look at SEC history. Look at what has happened in recent history. It's just very tough to do that. So, we'll see what they do. I would definitely shoot for the stars. Go out there and call somebody, see if they're interested. But I'm just setting expectations a little bit lower so people aren't freaking out if they don't go out there and get a proven Power 5 name like a Chris Kleiman or something like that. It's going to be tough, and you have to financially be able to compete with that too. A lot of these teams are spending a lot of money on these coaches. It's not easy to lure them over here to this. Oh, what else we got here? Would the next head coach be able to hire Arnett as the DC? No. He's not going to stick around for that. He's probably going to go to USC, I think. Jake Reed, why do you think the lofty predictions were so far off? I think it's just the fact that we were optimistic on what Zach Arnett could do based on who he hired, based on what they're returning, and he just wasn't ready. That's just the gist of it. If you have a coach that is not ready to handle the day-to-day operations, it's tough. It really is. So, I think that's what it was. And we were all wrong on this team. I think everybody in the media here had State winning at least 7. I had State, I was flipping back and forth from 7-5 to 8-4. And I'm going to be off by probably 2 games. But I did think State was going to finish 5th in the West. Rodney, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much influence do our boosters have regarding this hire? I think, to a point, they will definitely have. I don't know if it's like I don't know if influence is the right word. Like, I don't think they're going to be sitting in on some of these, meetings or interviews or anything like that. But they'll probably be bouncing some things off of some of these boosters because some of these guys are going to be paying fitting the bill and dealing with NIL and all that stuff. So they'll be tied in some situations, but I feel like it's going to be Zach Selman's call. Coach Caldwell, how you doing, Coach? Willie Fritz is Matt's choice. He's done a great job at Tulane. Makes about $3.5 million. I don't think we can pay much more than 5 to 6. I think they're willing to pay a little more, but I think they would like to sit somewhere around there. I like Willie Fritz. He's a little older. I'm hoping for somebody a little younger, more energetic, but the guy just wins, and I think that is important. I mean, he whatever he's doing is working at Tulane. He's been coaching for a long time too. But he's done an incredible job at Tulane. They were 2-10 in 2021. In the last 2 years, they've just been outstanding. They got a chance to get another New Year's Six game this year. I like him. It wouldn't be my number one choice, but he would be in my top 5, I think. Jeffrey, what did you mean by organizational issues? I don't know why this has gotten misconstrued, but I'm just speaking on Mississippi State not being super organized in the football offices. I apologize if people thought that was talking about the athletic department or whatever, but like I said, like anybody could look at this and say there's organizational issues with, and when I say I think where the problem was the word organizational, not organizational like Mississippi State, the organization. Mississippi State was not organized in football, and their team was really struggling to find that organization. That's what I'm talking about. Is they just didn't have things rolling the way that they have in the past. MSU Dog 09 found that Chris Jans of college football. Yeah, I mean that's a guy that's that living in that group of 5 range. That's what I'm talking about. Mississippi State can get some great head coaches from that area. Some of the best head coaches in football have come from group of 5 programs and made jumps to the SEC and places like that. I mean, look what Brian Kelly jumped from. Was it Cincinnati to? I think they were outside the Power 5. Yeah, Cincinnati to Notre Dame. There's been some of these great coaches have come from the group of 5 and made their jump. You got to come from somewhere. And Mississippi State's had some great coaches that have coached group of 5 and that they've plucked from there. So, I mean, you got to, I think that's where you need to live. And again, I would definitely call some Power 5 names and gauge their interest. But I'm just saying it's going to be a lot more difficult to get a Power 5 coach than it will be to get a rising group of 5 coach that is on the borderline of making that big jump. How about that? They need someone that will make football exciting and fun to watch. Maybe grab a random microphone after kicking Ole Miss's butt and say we were on the rise. Who did that? If only there was a person that's actually done that before. Justin Tidwell, do we get Stonka back? That's a good question. Just kind of depends on who they hire, and if Chad Bumpus is retained, I think you got a shot. He's made a lot of comments lately behind the scenes about leaving Mississippi, so I don't know. I mean, I think A&M's a factor for him. I think Ole Miss is recruiting him. But I do think with a new coaching hire that they'll have a chance. Jake Reed, who would be the wrong person to go after? specifically out of the people that have been mentioned so far, I don't like the Barry Odom talk. I don't think that would really move the needle much. I'm not a huge fan of Gus Malzahn. I don't think he's going to do anything special here. A lot of those like retread coaches, which I completely understand Dan Mullen would be a retread, but some of those coaches that have been in the Power 5 before, like I don't know if that would really do it for Mississippi State. Tom T. Zach Selman talks about scars on his hands from his father's construction company. He's never been an AD. Yeah, well, I mean, I get what he's saying there, and he actually rounded around and said that he has a lot of scars on his hands regarding coaching. I mean, in athletic administration, he's been a part of some coaching hires. He's been on some, he's been in some athletic departments where they've had to make hires, and he's been a part of that process. I get what he's saying there, but that was my question that I asked him, and that I'm just like you. I don't really know how this is going to turn out. But that was my question to him, was how prepared are you for this? Because he's never hired a head coach on his own. And he's not going to be on his own, but I mean, he's leading the charge now. This is a whole lot different. You know, John Cohen was on coaching committees and stuff like that when he was coaching at Mississippi State. When he became an AD, he had never made that kind of move. So this is different territory for him, and it's going to be a work in progress. I mean, we'll see what he's able to do. If he nails this hire, you got a real star on your hands. What are your thoughts on going after one of these offensive coordinators like Mike Denbrock from LSU or Alex Atkins at FSU? I mean, I don't think it's a lost cause if State goes after a coordinator. That's just not the direction I would go right now. But, you know, it would have to be somebody that has a lot of head coaching qualities in him, somebody that comes from a really good program, I think, that's, we saw that with Joe Moorhead coming from Penn State, and it felt like a really good fit, and it just didn't work out. The coordinator route is always a gamble, just like it would be with G.J. Kinney. So it's all about identifying a guy that, Zach Selman said, back to the thing about the scars on his hands, Zach Selman has been around football long enough, and he's talked about, he knows how to identify whether a coach is a winner or not and is a good coach. So if he can get into that room, he can look at that guy in the eyes, and that guy is a guy he feels like can lead Mississippi State, then you take him. But there's nobody that I look at right now as a coordinator that just sets the world on fire for me. But I'm willing to be talked into them when a name does come up. So far, off the top of my head, I don't have anybody that really, to me, is a great fit for State just yet. Richard Neal, I know he's up in age, but what about Gary Patterson? A good coach. I don't know. You're right. He's up there in age. I don't know how he would do in this new era. But he's a name that I've seen come up a few times, people asking about him some. Jeffrey, do you think Beamer from South Carolina would give us a chance with connections? I don't think they should hire Shane Beamer. I don't know if he would want to anyway, but he's struggling right now at South Carolina. Jerry Wildman Jr. I hope we get Mullen back. It was our best years ever under one coach. I like Mullen. I'm just saying. I don't want to say it too loud. Jed Fish from Stringer Films. I like Jed Fish a lot. I don't know how he would do in the SEC, but he's definitely done an incredible job at Arizona. By the way, that Arizona game is now Mississippi State's best win of the year. How about that? That was the game where we all started saying, I don't know if this is going to work out with Zach Arnett, and now it's the best win of the year. How is that possible? But they've really turned it up, and that he's improved every single year. I mean, they've gotten better and better. He's been really good in the portal. He's a great coach. I think a good offensive guy. I don't know how he would do in the SEC or if he's even interested. I'm not sure. A. McQueen, absolutely not to Rich Rodriguez. I agree. Some great names floating around right now. Kansas State coach has been an interesting addition. Also hearing about the guy from Oregon State. Yeah, I like the guy at Oregon State a lot. We talked about him on the podcast today. I think he is a alum there at Oregon State. So that would be a tough pull. But one of the things we mentioned on there, there's a lot of questions about where Oregon State fits now in this conference realignment. What's going to happen with them? That's a great selling point for Mississippi State to him. Jonathan Davis, I think is his name. Is that right? Let's look him up. That's a great selling point that you don't know what your future is. You know, it's a weird situation with the conference realignment and all that stuff. So, hey, we got you a opportunity here. You can come here in a conference where you're going to be safe and you can win big here. So, Jonathan Smith is his name, and this is an interesting name that's been popping up today. I mean, he's not really a Southern guy at all. He's a West Coast guy from California. Was an Oregon State guy, so it would be a stretch. It'd be a stretch to imagine him coming here, but we have seen him really start to get things going there at Oregon State. 10-3 last year, kind of struggled his first 3 or 4 years. Last year was 10-3. This year he's 8-2 so far. So he's a good coach, and he's been doing a really good job there. I just don't know about the fit, and also if he's even willing to come. But I would definitely be pushing the, hey, you don't know what your future's like there, because that's a big deal right now. Cliff Kingsbury should be the first choice. I disagree. Cliff didn't win very big at Texas Tech, which is not that far off from Mississippi State and some of their resources. I think State's probably got more resources than they do in football, and has recruited a lot better than they have. But he didn't recruit very well. He had a couple of good years, and I know he had obviously a good quarterback in there, but I just don't know. I don't know how he would fit in this landscape. I think Arnett would be a possible head coach at San Diego State. Could be. They obviously know him well there. He probably needs to step back in the defense coordinator and kind of get his groove back. Just in my opinion. Lane Johnson, I saw a post that one of my former football coaches posted today, and it was promoting trying to get Joe Judge as the next head coach. What are your thoughts? I don't think that would be a good idea. They almost hired him in 2017. Was it? He was the one that he was almost hired before Leach. 2020, they almost hired him. And he took the New York, he took the Giants job, and that was an absolute disaster. I don't know. Joe Judge has done nothing in college. So I just don't think he'd be a good fit in college. But I have heard that he's inquired about the job. He's at least put out some fillers. I just don't think it would be a good hire. Stringer, I'd take Bobby Petrino over Mullen. Ugh. Josh McDaniels. What, Stringer, what are you doing? Are you just throwing out random names right now? Are we going to have to kick you out of here? What's happening? They're not hiring Josh McDaniels. A Lebby hire with Art Briles as the OC would shake up the SEC. Yeah, and it would be terrible PR. I would not go down that road. Everett Bryan says, Rhett Lashley, if you can't get Mullen or Gus or Leopold. I like Rhett Lashley. That's a guy that we're not talking about enough. I think that would be an excellent hire. John Sumrall would be questionable. I like John Sumrall. I've seen a lot of people that aren't super thrilled with him, but he's 20-4 in 2 years. I don't see a lot of the arguments against him. Unknown in some ways on this level for sure, but he's been really good with his opportunities as head coach. Troy has been fairly successful for several different head coaches, but I do think he's done a great job there. I don't really see a huge issue with John Sumrall. I would take him. I think he's a good coach. Mississippi Dog, I don't want Keenum interfering in the coaching search. Dude made the wrong choice last year. But an argument, devil's advocate, he did set up a contract that was able to end this pretty easily. So I still see why they hired Zach Arnett. I wasn't mad at Mark Keenum for making that hire. It made sense at the time for the situation that they were in. Was it the wrong hire? It looks like, yes, it was. After 1 year, you fired a coach, so it was a failure. But he also set Mississippi State up so where they could make this move if they absolutely had to. So you got to give him credit for that too. I don't like the president getting super involved in athletics. I never liked that. Obviously he's going to have a say-so in it. He's running campus or whatever, but in a lot of ways, I think athletics and the university should be separated a little bit. I think you hire an athletic director to run your athletic department. You let him sign off on it, but it shouldn't be a situation where he's making those decisions. And I don't know how involved he is in it, but I imagine it's one of those deals where if somebody's got questionable character or whatever, he's probably going to step in. But I don't think that he's the guy that's going to make all these decisions. I appreciate that, James. Thanks for watching. I appreciate all you guys for hopping on here. Zach Ponder, Alex Galesh isn't being talked about enough. That is a really interesting guy. And he, doing some good things too. I wanted to pull up his bio because he is super interesting. He's a guy that, is from Russia, and he's coaching at South Florida now. He's made a nice rise up the ranks. Minimal success right now, but it's still early. But this guy is, he's not a Mississippi kind of guy, but super interesting individual. If you've ever watched any of his interviews, they're really interesting. And big Mike Leach guy. He was a guy that has been at several different schools around the Power Five. He was at Illinois a good bit. I think he was at Tennessee. Was one of the guys at Tennessee that really got them off and running as the offensive coordinator. So runs a really exciting offense. I like his offense a lot. Great character. I just don't know yet, if he could be successful on this level because he hasn't really shown it yet, even at South Florida. But it's still early there. Stringer is just throwing out names. Kyle Whittingham, he's not leaving Utah. Richard Neal, Robbie, with the injury and terrible season, do you think Will Rogers is coming back? No, I think Mississippi State and Will Rogers will move on after this year, one way or the other. Either he'll go ahead and graduate and go pro, or find a new spot. I just don't see it continuing. Jake Reed, when do you think this decision was actually made? I think it's been made for a couple of weeks, to be honest with you. I think it was told to Zach Arnett officially on Sunday. But I think this has been something that everybody knew it was coming in that office for a while now. I think that it was abundantly clear where this was headed. Mississippi Dog, hire a top coach and get KJ Jefferson to transfer for his last year. Horrible evaluation by Moorhead, did not get KJ. I get it. I thought that Garrett Schrader would have been really good here. I mean, hindsight, yeah, but I mean, Garrett Schrader would have done a lot of the same things KJ Jefferson did, I think, and that a similar type of offense. Okay, Stanley's just trolling at this point. I think we know who that is. No one talks about Kyle Whittingham because he's been at Utah forever, and he's having a ton of success there. He's not going anywhere. Luke Bullard. I know a Luke Ballard. Join the Bulldog Initiative tonight. Let's start this new chapter of Bulldog football strong. It's time for the fan base to buy in the NIL. I agree. I'm sure Charlie Winfield's really excited about that. I think this is the thing to do. If you're a Mississippi State fan, I think you need to get involved with this. Give what you can. Show the new coach that you're going to be invested in NIL. That's part of the deal now. Coaches pick places that they know they're going to be able to be set up for to have success. And if they don't believe that they can have it, they're not going to come. It doesn't matter if you're offering $7 or $8 million. If they know that they have one hand tied behind their back, they're not going to take the job. So, and I think the initiative has really grown over the last few months, but it needs to continue to grow. It's made a lot of progress, but State's still behind. Jeffrey, my uncle, lives in Harrisonburg and loves the James Madison coach. Would we have any interest in him? He's done a good job. Older guy, but that's definitely a guy that's been his name's been thrown around a good bit in the early stages of this. And he's done a great job at James Madison. They're making the move up. I think they have a bowl ban or something this year because they're moving up to FBS, but they're going to be a team that's going to contend, I think. Elvis, what does it say for our coordinators that neither was chosen for interim? Yeah, I agree. Chose the guy that's the offensive analyst, which also says a lot about Greg Knox, by the way. Greg Knox is basically running the running backs right now. So he's not just sitting back. He's done a lot of work, but it says a lot about what to think about Greg Knox. I remember when Mullen left, wondering why they didn't go with I can't remember if Tony Hughes was here at the time. Might not have been, but there were other options there for interim coach, and I was wondering why it was Greg Knox. And now we're finding that out. He was super impressive today. The way he handled the Tax Slayer Bowl in 2017 was fantastic. Florida asked him to be the interim coach whenever Dan Mullen left, and so he's done a really good job of handling those situations, and I think it was a no-brainer to just promote him. As Zachary adds, he's got the highest winning percentage of any state football coach in school history. He does. He's 1-0. Zach Arnett was right there with Knox. He was 3-0, but Knox has overtaken him once again. All right, anybody else? Had a good run tonight. Lots of coaches' names being thrown out tonight. I think some of you guys have covered pretty much everybody at this point. All right, let's call it quits. I appreciate you guys. It's been a wild day. We're gonna keep you updated. We'll keep dropping in here on YouTube, and of course we got tons of stuff coming on our website as well. So come check us out. Be sure to stay tuned to Thunder and Lightning. We got stuff coming out daily, and remember to subscribe if you haven't already. So I would really appreciate that. And I appreciate all you guys for supporting me. Steve, thank you so much for that. Means a lot. All you guys for supporting me, I really appreciate it. I enjoy doing this, but you guys subscribing, adding a little money on the super chats and stuff like that, it means a lot to me. And you guys mean a lot to me, especially you guys that are here every week. This is fun. I feel like I know you guys well. And I love hearing from Mississippi State fans as well, and getting y'all's perspective on things. So thank you again, Steve. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna give me some catfish tomorrow. So thanks a lot. All right, guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. We got Southern Miss coming up at Starkville this weekend. Have fun with that. I'll be there at 11 a.m. Looking forward to it. Other than that, we will talk to you later, if I can get this off.